Hi there, this is Tara Haislip, and you're listening to Confident You Radio and the Casa de Confidence podcast with Julie DeLucca Collins.
Hello, amazing friends. We have another great guest for us today. And thank you, Tara, for being here. I wanted to start off with a quick question for you. You rebuilt your career 3 times as you were trying to find yourself. Tell me a little bit more about that.
My first love and career was dance. I mean, it was everything I wanted to be. I was the little girl who was like, I'm going to be a ballerina, and I went for it.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, and once I got into the upper crust of that career, it's very competitive. I was a small town kid that moved to Philadelphia. And even Buffalo, like that was the closest city to me growing up. When I
Mhm.
decided to go to a bigger dance school in Buffalo, I remember my mom saying to me, you're going to be a little fish in a big pond, and you've been used to being the big fish in a little pond. And I said, I still want to do it. But Buffalo is still a very kind of like small community. The art world is very small. The dance community is very small. We all kind of know each other and are connected. And then I jumped and went into Philadelphia, and that's an even bigger pool.
Yeah.
Um, and really wanted my career to be in Europe. So I was just taking it to bigger and bigger levels. But
Mm.
during that time, I didn't have a good sense of self. And I don't think a lot of us do when we're at that age, like late
No.
teens, early 20s. I mean, we're just kind of winging it, having a good time, figuring it out. But there are a lot of tendencies that kind of crept up that I really did not know how to not let in people's critiques and make it personal. We are always
Hmm.
told it's not personal, it's business. But when you don't have a good, like, solid support network of your own and like a good sense of self, it's hard not to let that stuff seep in. So I let it really eat away at me. I worked multiple jobs. I was constantly networking. I was burning the candle at both ends, and finally just blew out my knee. Like, my body said, if you're not going to stop, I'm going to make you stop.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was 21 when I blew out my knee, my first
Mm.
knee. Um, and then I think I tore the second one like 6 months after surgery. But
Wow.
I but I like panicked, was like, no, I'm okay. It was something so basic. Like, I went to get up, stepped wrong, I wasn't awake, and like I heard this pop just like my first knee. And
Oh.
I woke right up, stood up, started to move my knee, and was like, okay, it's fine. 12 years later, I ended up actually having a bucket handle tear that didn't go bad until 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh. What a tremendous story. And, how is your knee now? I mean,
They're both fine.
okay.
Yeah, it was just the meniscus, thank goodness.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
it was in an audition. The first one popped
Hmm.
right at the beginning, and I did a 3-hour audition on a busted knee,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was in denial. Any athlete that's listening to the show, whether it's arts or sports, you suffer an injury, and it's very hard on you psychologically. Like, you kind of
Yeah.
don't want to recognize it. And I didn't for a number of months.
Yeah. I think that, it's such a common thing in, between people who are high achievers. And sometimes we don't pay attention to the signs.
Yeah.
And we keep going, right? We keep
Mhm.
going at the expense of our health, at the expense of something that could be a minimal sideline, but then becomes a bigger thing
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
we do that. And thank you for sharing that. I know that you left a corporate career
Yeah.
after, you were pursuing your passion for art, for dance, but you went into corporate America
Yeah.
but you left a corporate career after you found your passion.
Mhm.
What was your experience and how did you find your passion? What led you to kind of make that big decision too? Because it's a leap to
Yeah.
decide, after I would imagine you're pursuing your dance career and then you decide, okay, well, I need to go to this 9 to 5 grind, and then you're growing up through the ladder, and then all of a sudden you're going to shift. What was that like? Because I think
Yeah.
there's listeners that are maybe in that same spot.
Absolutely. Yeah. It took me a little time to kind of realize, like, what is it that I wanted to do in the interim. I mean, I'm one of these that I have to enjoy it. I have to have some sense of liking for it, or
Mhm.
that's that artistic temperament. I just keep jumping from one thing to the other. And of course, as I shifted into corporate, I became a paralegal. I went back to school for that. And,
Mhm.
they were teaching us that you do not want to jump from one job to the next. It's not seen as a good quality. It
Mhm.
shows that you're not serious. So I was like, okay, I need to do something that, you know, I really do like. And I did. I
Mhm.
enjoyed it, but I wasn't passionate about it. My first job was with the US Attorney's Office. And I
Mm.
really, just to get my feet wet, kind of get some, with my knowledge, real life knowledge, working knowledge, to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And I really thought I was going to go into medical malpractice as a paralegal.
Mhm.
But the universe had a different story for me. And I
Yeah.
ended up in trust and estate law, which I ended up really loving. It's totally boring. It's nothing like
Mhm.
litigation. And I ended up even specializing further in that on the back end of administering estates. So I was
Wow.
helping the family
Mhm.
um, figure out how to move the estate around from out of the decedent's name and into wherever the documents directed, whether it was a will or a trust. So
Mhm.
the long title was I was a trust and estate administration paralegal. Again, very boring work, but
Mhm.
I was started with a very small family run firm who had been in business for 40 years and they really didn't focus on the back end. But now that they were 40 years in, their clients were starting to die
Mm.
and they needed somebody to do the work. And I had to teach myself.
Yeah.
I didn't, take any estate law courses when I was in school and I didn't know what I was doing. So I bought another book and I taught
Mhm.
myself. And when I teach myself something, I just want to keep going with it. And I did that for a number of years, but I found myself like continuing to change jobs because the family firm was bringing more family in. So I was like, well, it's time to go. Um, Ended up working for the local bank as a commercial lender in between because they specifically wanted a paralegal.
Yeah.
Did well there, but ended up reaching a cap. It's banking. If anybody has been in banking, you know how much that's a pressure cooker environment too. And you're constantly like, if you're smaller, you're being bought out and lots of changes. And that's what was happening. And I landed in a regional law firm, doing the work that I loved, and I loved the clients. I
Mhm.
liked being able to support them, be their sounding board when they needed it. And working with lawyers, everybody, kind of rolls their eyes and says, oh, you can never get a hold of a lawyer. You never can get any answers until they're ready to give you answers. So whenever clients would reach out to me, I knew that it was just coming from a place of angst. And even if I didn't have an update for them, I was constantly like, I don't have an update, but you can always reach out to me. And, if it helps. And they love that. That was the biggest review I got from them was like, we know you don't have any more information. We just feel like, it helps to hear from you so that we know you're actually working on it. But it got depressing because we are essentially working with the dead.
Yeah, for sure.
And well,
Yeah, I love what you're saying, but I think that this is really building blocks to where you are today.
yeah, it is. It was, because that's exactly what happened is I wanted to help people in their lives, not
Mhm.
so much after their death.
Yeah.
It was great work, but I was working on my own health at the time too,
Mhm.
trying to figure out my nutrition, trying to figure out a lot of things, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And I wanted that for other people. I wanted them to find that sense of self, like what
Mhm.
I was doing. And so I don't recommend this, but I just got to a point where I was like, I'm done. I can't do this 9 to 5
Yeah.
grind. And I
Yeah.
left. Like I had no plan.
Yeah.
I got my certification and was like, okay, I'm gonna start a business.
There you go. There you go. I think that, sometimes we have this analysis paralysis, right? Where we
Mhm,
have to have a plan, things have to line up. And that was me for a long time. I'm like, well, I'm going to get my certification and then I'm going to see and kind of put my toes in the water and do all these things. Yet, um, honestly, I ended up the universe had other plans. So I was like,
mhm,
we've been telling you you need to go in this direction and kind of threw me out to the curb and I had no choice but to move forward. But a lot of times that analysis paralysis keeps us
mhm,
from doing the thing that we're called to and doing the thing that is really burning in our heart.
mhm,
Um, I think that that's the balance, right, of, the mind and the heart, right? Our
Yes.
heart is in a place and our mind is in another. I know that this is something that you're familiar with.
Mhm.
How do we create that blend that we are still following our heart, but we're reassuring our mind is going to be okay?
Yeah, and this is a tricky one. I've worked on it for many years. I've talked about it for many years. It's the basis of everything that I do now currently.
Hmm.
It's definitely a practice that you have to find within yourself, and it starts with doing something that somebody else has done. So,
Yeah.
just because it's not entirely unique to you when you start doesn't mean it's not going to be, but you got to
Hmm.
start somewhere. And so,
Yeah.
why reinvent the wheel? Like, start with something that somebody else has done. So, my thing is I was always trying to practice mindfulness and meditation, which was
Hmm.
really tough for me because I can't sit still. I'm terrible at it. Um, and I would
I
want to be
know.
perfect about it. So meditation is where I started.
Hmm.
And then it came down to like listening to guided meditations, short ones. Like there's
Hmm.
you do not meditation is not about sitting perfectly in lotus with your thumb and forefinger pressed together and like a straight back. Like it takes time to get to that
Right.
place. So really honor where your body is physically at in addition to where your mind is at. Like if your
Hmm.
mind is racing 100 miles an hour, sitting quietly is not going to work
It's
when
not
you
going to work.
start.
Yeah. 100%.
So finding the tools, like maybe listening to, maybe not even listening to anything. Maybe it's cooking. Like if you really enjoy cooking, that's a
Hmm.
meditative practice. If you need quiet and solace to start your day or to end your day, like even if you're a busy parent, like once everybody is in bed, forget the laundry, forget the dishes, forget the cleaning. Like once everybody's asleep, go find your quiet space
Yeah.
even for 5 minutes. Take some tea, grab a journal. And that was the other thing that I started doing. So it's like little things like that. 5 minutes, 30 seconds, wherever you're at, start with it. And then the more you slow down or give yourself permission to slow down, your heart will start to speak to you.
I love that. I think that we make it so complicated. I know that I did in so many times. And I used to say, I told myself the story, oh, meditation's not for me. I could never quiet my mind. But eventually I became a meditation teacher, mainly because I wanted to, teach it and
Mhm,
practice it. But really it's about finding what works for you. One of my practices, and I've talked about it on the show before, is in the afternoon. I typically make a cup of tea, and that is a period in which I sit and I listen to the water and I'm very intentional. I'm paying attention to filling my little tea kettle, watching it boil, and then as I pour the water into my cup, watching it and then watching the water just change color with a tea bag and all
mhm,
of that is really bringing me in that moment and that mindfulness practice is really about being here in the now.
mhm,
And yes, acknowledging that there are going to be. Maybe I hear my dogs and then acknowledging, okay, the dogs are there. Let me go back. And that's been one of the things that has helped me kind of reconnect and create some healing space in times that I could just be going 100 miles per minute.
mhm.
And that's what many people really end up struggling with. In your experience, you work with a lot of women. Tell me a little bit about what are the signs of burnout, because there might be listeners who maybe are saying, meditation is not for me. But let's
Mhm.
talk a little bit about burnout now and shift gears on that.
Yeah, there are many signs and many signs that we ignore, especially as women,
Hmm.
because we are the glue in most cases that holds everything together in
Yeah.
our lives and our family. Signs of burnout, fatigue, exhaustion, weight gain,
Mm,
easy weight gain for
yeah.
kind of no rhyme or reason, especially if you're very health conscious and watching what you eat, not being able to get it off if you're finding time to move, you're being active, physical aches and pains that seem to come up out of quote unquote nowhere. It's your body telling you that you've reached climax and
Mhm.
maybe you've even redlined.
Yeah.
Headaches, joint pain, uh, weird anomalies. I've heard women say, I, I have these pains or these aches or these weird illnesses that have manifested. I go to the doctor, they can't find any answers.
Mhm. Yeah.
Those are a lot of physical.
Those are a lot of physical, absolutely.
Mhm.
And do you find that people that are in burnout already are having a difficult time pulling themselves out of burnout? And how do you help individuals who are in this burnout stage?
Yeah. I do find that they have a hard time slowing down, because you're so used to chaos, so to
Mhm,
speak, whatever that may look like for the individual. And it's getting them to tap into their body. Um,
mhm.
when they're meeting with me, if they're like, I'm going 100 miles an hour, and it's like, okay, I start every session with a meditation just to bring
Mm,
them into their body,
yeah,
into the space, so
beautiful.
that they try and calm down what's going on around them. I mean, it's still there, but kind of focusing them on them and me, or them, yeah, them and me.
Mhm. When I work with a lot of women as well who are maybe in the brink or in the middle of burnout, a lot of the things that they do is that they really start to judge themselves,
Mhm,
and they really, kind of spiral with those thoughts. And I wonder, um, in your life, how did you recognize and begin to appreciate parts of your personality, your character, that maybe you saw as a negative, right?
mhm.
But how did you begin to embrace, and what are some of these characteristics that perhaps you saw and thought, I don't like that, or were afraid to show others, right?
Mhm.
I'd love to hear a little bit more on that.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
Isn't it always a journey though, Tara? It
It
always
is.
is.
To summarize, I created a huge wall,
Mhm,
um, from childhood. I was afraid of people seeing me, and it goes way back, but to summarize,
mhm,
it's kind of like a how I was viewed was very I was bossy and opinionated, but really I am a strong personality. I
mhm,
have a voice. I was trying to find how to articulate my emotions, my thoughts, my dreams. Um, and because it wasn't well received growing up, I
mhm.
built a wall, and I thought, all right, well, I guess I'm not really somebody that people want to get to know. So let me hide this because they won't like me. And that was kind of the biggest hurdle when I was a dancer, because you have to be you in
Mhm.
your art, and all of its grittiness and ugliness and highlights and beauty. I actually started with a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Louise Hay, I love that book.
Yes, I read it cover to cover. I had people telling me for years that I needed therapy, that I should
Mhm.
consider therapy, and it scared me
Yeah.
because I didn't know anybody who had actually done it, and it
Why
wasn't a
did it
bad.
scare you? Because you didn't know anybody? Was there anything else about therapy that maybe you
Yeah,
you had in your mind?
yeah, there was this, idea that if you needed therapy, something was wrong with you,
Mm.
and, even though some people in my family were like, "Oh, this person needs therapy," there was still judgment around it, like,
Yeah.
they have issues, they need therapy type of thing,
Mhm.
and it's like, "But isn't it supposed to be helpful?" So I didn't really
Well, we
understand.
all have issues and we all need
Right?
therapy.
Right, right. Yes. So, I was scared to do it, and I wanted to do some inner work on myself. This is when I
Mhm.
changed careers. So I
Okay.
knew becoming a paralegal, I was like, I need to do the inner work. There's something that I need to correct. I don't want to continue being this little rainy black cloud that is around
Mm.
everybody. Like, I alienated people around me because I was so miserable with myself. I was living two different versions. I couldn't do it anymore. So, I started with her book, and then I moved into therapy.
Mhm.
Um, and it was the first time I started to find my voice and articulate how I was feeling without being judged.
Yeah.
And it was such a huge sense of relief.
Mm.
From there, it was learning to love myself, love the qualities of my personality, honor them, also know when I'm getting a little red line on my own and being like, okay, what's really going on, and sitting myself down. And, my husband sometimes puts me in check. He's very laid back,
Yeah,
but
I think that's what a good thing that husbands can do for us, right?
yeah. And sometimes he'll just be like, you need a timeout. And I'm like, I need a timeout. Okay.
Okay. Like, I get it. I've been there.
So that's
Um,
really like, yeah, it took a while.
yeah. I know that for me, and again, I want to encourage the listeners, we need to start to normalize that just like we go to the doctor for a checkup, it is okay to go to a therapist for a mental health and to
Mhm.
really acknowledge that nobody teaches us these coping mechanisms. Nobody teaches us all of these things that can help us. And by the way, there is a role between therapists and coaches, and there
Mhm.
is an intersection between the two. But ultimately, you need to make sure that if you need to deal with some of the past, if you need to deal with some of these emotions that are coming up, a therapist can really help you kind of come up with some of that. And then if you want
Yeah.
to move forward, look at things in the future, then actionable steps. And that's, maybe when a coach is coming in. And I'm sure if you want to message Tara or myself, we can kind of dissect, the differences because
Mm.
is very important. But you've also availed yourself of other modalities to help you in the healing process, not only of your body, but of your mind. Because a lot of things that happen to many of us is we have a lot of this past trauma, which I want to normalize. We all have that, becomes really trapped in our body and becomes that stress that can add to or be the cause of our burnout. So
Mhm.
what are other practitioners that you have worked with, Tara?
Yeah, so Reiki was a big one. That was one I didn't have any experience the first time I did it. I
Mhm.
just kind of laid there for an hour and was like, "That's great. That was a nice little break. Thank you." Um, but it kept presenting itself in my life, and I was like,
Mhm.
maybe I should take this opportunity." And the more I started to do it, the more I started to open up and release further,
Mm,
in my own understanding of myself and my gifts and like stuff that I kind of buried from my past. And I became a Reiki one practitioner to help people kind of start to explore that. That was one. I've recently done hypnosis, and
mhm,
that was just kind of like helping me work through a current experience of like finding deeper answers and making space. I was pregnant and like so much was going on.
mm.
Um, and what else have I done? Reiki shadow work. That
Okay.
is the biggest thing. And quite honestly, that is the absolute foundation of my work. And people get so scared of that term because I think it's been used a lot and there's a lot of confusion around it.
Mhm,
It's really, to very oversimplify it, it is the new age self-awareness.
mhm,
It's really going back to the root of what is creating this dis-ease or stress, burnout in our lives. Um, and sometimes because it is so deep, like you definitely need a therapist to help you work through it. And I
yeah,
love that you bring up the bridge and the intersection that is between therapy and coaching. Like we work in tandem,
mhm,
um,
absolutely.
to support clients.
Yeah, I think that, there's gotta be a lot of reform that we, bring up when it comes to our mental health, our healthcare. I think that there's a lot of practitioners as well that, the barrier of entry for people availing themselves of modalities is the income, right? But
Hmm.
there's so many different things that can help you heal and help you get to a new level. But, again, people are not mainstream, it's not open to
Right.
necessarily supporting them, and we could be here all day to talk about
Oh yeah.
that. uh, I love this journey. I'm so appreciative that you are open and willing to share. I think that in the more that we normalize what we've been through, it allows others to really be able to see themselves in ourselves in the mirror. We're those believing mirrors for others. You have a mission to help women balance their masculine plus feminine energy regardless of gender, to reduce that burnout and
Mhm.
increase their productivity and find true work life balance. And in turn, you help them foster community, heart centric corporate cultures within their jobs and in their businesses. So, in reading all of that, there's two things that really stick out to me.
Mhm.
Balance or masculine plus feminine energy, and again, reduce productivity, which is one of my favorite things that I love productivity. But for someone who's reading that for the first time and maybe they're not necessarily in the self-help industry, they're
Mhm.
kind of new, dipping their toes in the water, what is balancing their masculine plus feminine energy?
Yeah, this is a great question. This is another one that's coming up a lot in the new age kind of health and wellness
Mhm,
community. It's recognizing, so for women, in a lot of cases, like I pull from my masculine energy, which is very action oriented,
mhm.
very strong, like go, 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 go energy.
Right.
Feminine energy just means that it's a softer approach. It's not so, it's more reflective, more contemplative, like not aggressive, in the
Mhm,
sense of like everything's actionable, everything's got to be a sale, everything's got to be, you know, there has to be an outcome. And women, when we're in environments where it's very like very high corporate,
mhm,
action oriented, you may find that even though your um what's the word I'm looking for? Your place of balance, maybe pulling from more of your masculine and less of your feminine, but sometimes you're pulling too much from it. And
mhm.
that's increasing your burnout because you're
Mm,
not taking the time to step back and
yeah.
contemplate and just letting things flow,
Mhm.
and kind of work themselves out. Like that was a big one for me to figure
Yeah,
out. And it still
absolutely.
is. I'm still constantly like, okay, I need to find a solution. What's an action item that I can do? Let's be more productive about this. And when I start getting too over the top with that, and it starts to
Mhm.
feel like I'm doing way too much for little results and nothing is working out. Like that's the other thing too, of like you're doing a lot of action
Yeah.
and getting like no result. That means you need to take a step back. You need to tap into that more feminine flow of energy.
Absolutely. You know, when you're talking about this and I look back at my corporate career, one of the things that I leverage, and there's so many different tools, right?
Mhm.
For me was the DISC personality assessment. In the DISC personality assessment, I'm a high D, which is the dominant personality. I don't have a lot of the supportive, kind of like the laid back, need all the details type of person. But
Mhm.
similarly to what you're speaking about, I knew that in order to be in balance or in flow or better harmony for myself, I cannot be in that dominant personality all the time.
Mhm.
And I need to kind of, okay, let's take a breath, let's be reflective. And really this is so important, the different modalities that you choose are the ones that are ultimately help support you. And I want you to, find out, talk to people like Tara, talk to me, um, and talk to your friends, because the more that we have these conversations, the more that we can normalize that we're not the only one who's going through this.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
Tara, you have a book coming out.
Yes.
I'm excited. Let's talk about this. Tell me more about the book. What is the title of the book? When does it come out? And again, it's coming out soon. So this may come out after the book, but I want listeners to go and get it. So tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love writing, and to kind of dip my toes into writing, I got into doing multi-author books. They're a great way. I know it's a new thing that's coming out. There's lots of people that have publishing houses you can do this with, but the book is called Broken. This is the second one I've done, and
Okay.
the subtitle is Women Breaking Ancestral Chains and Generational Cycles to Create a Brighter Future for Themselves and Their Families.
Mm.
The book
What
is
are ancestral chains?
so your ancestral lines, like within your family. So for some of your listeners who maybe have been going down this road of healing and self-awareness and recognizing patterns,
Mhm,
you start to recognize family patterns that maybe go back multiple generations. And you might be somebody who's thinking like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I don't agree with this teaching, or it could be around anything like family values, like
mhm.
whether it's finances, work-life balance, career, education, whatever it may be, and you're going, I didn't enjoy this process for myself. I want to do it different for my family. Like if I
Mm,
want kids, or if you are helping to raise nieces and nephews, or whatever it may be,
yeah.
you want to do it different. And breaking those chains and those generational cycles, it's tricky. It's a
Yeah.
tricky one.
I know. Have you read the book It Didn't Start With You?
No, I didn't.
Oh my goodness. Go read it.
Okay.
Don't wait. Okay, so I listened to a podcast. My friend Ben Ye, friend of the show, he's been here a couple times. He had I call it, her name is Dr. Yvonne. I can't remember her last name. And this is the first time I was going through a personal discovery on trauma, starting to uncover this for myself. And she all of a sudden started to talk about generational trauma,
Mhm.
ancestral chains. And I was like, what is this? And she talked about the book. And I'm like, oh, let me go check out this book. And when I read the book, I'm telling you, my mind was blown because there is so much scientific research, right? If you're not into the woo, but you have a science mind, I will tell you that there's a lot of research and scientific proof that a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with is not something that we necessarily it's us, it's our own burdens. Some of these
Mhm.
burdens are encoded into our DNA. So for
Yes.
instance, when your grandmother was pregnant with your mother, you in essence were in your mother's womb,
Mhm.
and everything that your grandmother was experiencing was passed on to your mom and in essence to you. So if your grandmother was going through a difficult relationship, abuse, or whatever difficulties and challenges, you may have an aversion to certain things that you don't know where they come from and you don't
Right.
have an explanation, but it's really because of the things that have been experienced by this people that came before you. Um,
Mhm.
there is a Netflix, and I know I've talked about it before. There's a Netflix show, and I'm very, I don't know. I don't even know what to call it. My taste in Netflix is not your run of the mill. I do a lot of international different shows. This show in particular is based on the book.
Mm.
And I highly recommend it because it's sort of like a fun dramedy, comedy drama,
Yep.
but it is based on the premise of the book. So I hold on, let me see if I can find it for all of us. Because anyway, I will put it in the show notes. And again, you can always send me a message and say, hey, what's the name of the Netflix thing? But it is based on the book, and it's based on the fact that it follows three friends with three different lifestyles, and they're
Mhm.
dealing with different issues in their life. One of them, the one that it starts with, one of them has um, cancer.
Mm.
And so her body is reacting to some of the trauma that has been trapped in her body. It's another self. That's what it's called. Another
Another
self.
self.
So
Mm.
highly recommend it. Really fun. It's a nice little dramedy for all of us. But now we got sidetracked. You're gonna go get you're gonna go get the book, which
Uh-huh.
is I Didn't Start With You, but go back to your book.
Yeah.
What is the message that you have for other people in your book?
So the message I have is that healing is ongoing,
Mm,
that no
beautiful.
matter where you start, it never ends. It keeps evolving. And if you have kids, or you have nieces and nephews that look up to you, or you have grandchildren, or whatever it may be,
Mhm.
they're watching you.
So
And
true.
they're going to learn more from watching you than listening to you. And I
Mhm.
try to do the same for my own boys. Um, and it's I'm still learning. My oldest definitely has my personality. It's me and a boy, my personality and a boy. So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be interesting.
Fun. Okay. I I love that. I think that we do see ourselves and the people that come after us. I don't have children, but I have nieces and nephews. And really my goal is that through my own personal journey, that they can get some of the lessons and hopefully not struggle through and hopefully normalize for them as well that there's nothing wrong with them, that life is just
Mhm.
about a journey, about evolving, about shifting, and really growing into the person that we're meant to be. How do you help individuals, Tara, and how do people can leverage your support?
Yeah, so I've been reflecting a lot this year, and especially with the economy and how everybody is really focused on their pocketbooks and their
Mhm.
wallets. So all of my services are under $400, which I like to
Mm,
share that because I know that there's a big thing of like
yeah.
you hear somebody, you're like, great, I want to work with you, and then you're afraid to go look at their website because you're afraid to see
Mhm.
their prices. I do
Yes,
that.
that happens a lot.
But I have a number of different services at various levels. I
Mhm.
have we talked about the heart mind connection. I did a meditation workshop that is on demand. You download it, you can listen to it as often as
Mm,
you want. It allows you that space to like get to know yourself, kind of figure out where you want to go. And then
okay.
there's various levels of coaching from minimally hands-on to very hands-on. And you can find me on my website at groundedenergy111.com. Instagram is a great place to connect with me. My handle is at grounded_energy111.
Mhm.
And you can also find me on LinkedIn.
Ooh, so good, so good. And by the way, I love some of your posts on Instagram. I went and I checked out. I just realized I went and I checked out your Instagram before, but I never followed you, so I'm sorry for that. I'm following you now. But yeah, you have some really great content, and I think that this is going to be really great for people to connect with you and get some of your insights as well. You're doing some reels in there, so great, great content. Thank you so much. And you have
You're welcome.
different events. You are available as a speaker as well. If someone maybe this resonated with them and they want to bring you into their company, I think that this will be a really great space for you to for them to connect with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I am moving more into the public speaking role, which has
I love
been
it.
fun.
I love it. Well, it has been an incredible pleasure. Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
generosity of time and for being here and for connecting with me and for continuing to be a part of my universe so that we can continue to collaborate and support each other in this journey. You're doing some incredible work, Tara. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. I appreciate it so much.
Well, great, everybody. Don't forget to follow her, give her some social currency. Tell her you found her through Confident Radio and the Casa de Confidence podcast. I am thrilled to have her in my universe as one of my business besties that we can come alongside and support each other in this journey. She's doing some great work, everyone. Don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.